What's up, everybody? Coach Mel's here, coming at you with a brand new Overwatch video. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down Season 33, the last Overwatch tier list. We're going to break down exactly what characters you should be playing, grinding, and avoiding if you want to have success this competitive Overwatch season. But the GameLeap website right now has a special 50% off sale. Using our code Overwatch2, you can have access to all the in-depth guides, the tips, the tricks, the VOD reviews right now at a fraction of the cost. Overwatch 2 down below. Now, the first thing that we need to talk about are the most played tanks. Tanks will typically dictate what the meta is played and what characters you play around tanks, both with and against. So let's talk about the top picked tanks right now. First up, we got to talk about the top of the pick rate in Grandmaster is none other than Sigma. If I were to define Sigma by one word, I would say he's flexible. And that's why he is so picked right now in the meta, when the second and third most picked tank, all around 7%, is Roadhog and Wrecking Ball. You see, Sigma is almost the all-in-one package. While he definitely can work with things like double shield and play together with another tank, Sigma is one of the few main tank-like characters that actually can just be by himself. He doesn't need another tank to be with him. In fact, oftentimes, having a DPS behind him or the team pushing around with the Sigma can be just as effective. Unlike a character like Ryan, who just can't peel for himself, can't defend himself, and doesn't put out as much value when he's playing an off angle or playing alone, Sigma can. And that's why if you have a Roadhog that's constantly going on the flank or going for plays, or a Wrecking Ball disrupting the enemy, the Sigma can still do his thing and be effective. And that is really why Sigma is so powerful. However, keep in mind that you will see a fall off in Sigma's pick rate as you go down the ranks. And one of the big reasons for that is Sigma is pretty difficult to play. He has a fairly high skill ceiling, and if I were to give you a couple tips on Sigma, I would say to properly manage natural cover with your shield health. You never want to be caught without that shield. Don't be overly relying on things like kinetic grasp when there are characters like Roadhog that can easily shut you down. And Sigma, of course, is always going to want to flock to places that have natural cover, places like the high ground or areas of the map that he can jiggle around and behind. He can't just be isolated in the middle of nowhere. He's going to run out of resources incredibly quickly and have no out when enemies eventually push him. Now, I did mention Roadhog and Wrecking Ball. Now, Roadhog, of course, is very played, but your number one menace is definitely going to be Ana, who is one of the most picked characters in almost every single rank. It's actually slightly less played in Grandmaster comparatively to the other ranks. But how much you can do on Roadhog is going to be really proportionate to how good the enemy Ana is. I think it's really important to start to notice how she plays, notice what you can get away with, and the greedier you can get and the more you can do, you can carry a lot of games that way. But if it turns into you feeding, it can be pretty easy for an Ana to shut you down, or even other characters like D.Va, for instance. So definitely keep that in mind. And I think a Roadhog that adjusts his play based on how good or how much the enemy keeps him in check is always going to be a Roadhog that gets value no matter what situation. Now, of course, I did want to mention Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball, like I said, has a 7.04% pick rate. And because of Wrecking Ball's independent playstyle, he is incredibly powerful at not only creating space, but disrupting the enemy and making a catalyst for your DPS to go in and deal damage, right? A Wrecking Ball slams in, gets all the eyes on him, baits out a lot of cooldowns, and then your Tracer is freed up, or your rest of the team is freed up. Now, one thing that you need to understand about Wrecking Ball is that you can still die. You're not invincible, right? There are things that can shut you down. CC can be incredibly frustrating. You don't want to get rocked, getting hooked, getting whole hog, getting slept. There's a lot of things you got to play around. So it's really important that you are watching where the enemies are, watch how they play, what they're doing, and where they're positioned. Don't just slam in to 6 players on the enemy team when they have all their cooldowns. Doesn't matter how much health you're getting, you are going to die for free. And always route around the map so that you can grab these megas and get back into the fight as quickly as possible. Now, there are also other tanks that are seeing play. Diva at about a 5% pick rate, Ryan at about a 4% pick rate, Orisa at about a 3% pick rate. So a lot of these characters are variously viable depending on what situation you're playing in. But I think ultimately those top three, Sigma, Roadhog, and Wrecking Ball, are your best bets for this meta. Now, the next thing that we need to talk about is actually the DPS. And remember, the DPS pick rate is going to be relatively lower than the support and tanking counterparts because there's just more DPS options, right? The tanks are very unique and kind of individual in what they do. Same thing for the supports. But DPS, there's a lot of overlap in how effective they are, right? A Hanzo might not be that similar to an Ashe, but he doesn't completely change what composition is played, right? As opposed to a Reinhardt and a Winston just completely change the entire way the team fight goes about. The difference between a Hanzo and an Ashe, not so much. So that's kind of the point when I'm talking about overlap here. Now, speaking of which, let's talk about the top DPS right now. First off is Tracer, far and away the best DPS. And I know that Tracer is going to be a character that really scales with skills, very difficult to fully master. And she's going to play a lot better when you have a character like Wrecking Ball that is allowing you to go in and creating a lot of space. Now, one of the problems that Tracer players will run into is Brig players. Brig players can be incredibly frustrating to deal with because they just have all the capability to kite you away, and it's very difficult for you to deal damage to them. I think the best way to actually still get value in spite of a Brig that is just kind of shutting you down is going in with your team and still trying to burst through and putting pressure at specific points and hitting consistent pulse bombs. I always suggest going into the training room with unlimited pulse bombs and practicing. Regardless of Brig or no Brig, if you can grind your pulse bombs and hit consistent pulse bombs, then you're still going to be able to carry fights regardless of if every single time an enemy swaps when you're playing Tracer and start popping off. Now, the next characters that are actually very good, and there's a lot of different options here, there is Hanzo, who's the second most played, Ashe right behind, Cassidy, Soldier, Widowmaker. A lot of these characters are good in various situations and depending on your preference and skill level. Hanzo can be pretty effective playing with a Sigma on the high ground, for instance. Ashe can be great at comboing Dynamite with the slam of a Wrecking Ball. Cassidy can really shut down a Wrecking Ball from coming in and slamming over and over again, and a Soldier 76 can help dive with his team. I think the best way to have success with DPS right now is to look at what your tanks are playing and decide to play a DPS and adopt your play style so that you can still get value in spite of whatever tanks you're playing and y'all work along with each other. Even if they're not trying for it, you can still get value out of the play patterns that they are going about every single game. Now, the last role that we definitely have to talk about is the supporting role. And the supporting role is interesting because there's a lot of different options here. Because right now in Grandmaster, it is Zenyatta, far and away the best at a 7% pick rate just about. Now, Zenyatta is going to work really great in this really frag-oriented kind of almost sporadic play that's going on right now. It kind of feels like the compositions that are good right now, or the play that is seeing play right now in high ranked or just ranked in general, is a lot more deathmatchy. It feels almost like the triple DPS 2 support 1 Wrecking Ball compositions of past. There's a lot of sporadic fights, there's a lot of 1v1 matchups, and as Zenyatta, you have the capability to carry a lot of fights. You can not only output a lot of aggressive power, you can discord targets that need to, like Wrecking Ball. You can actually challenge characters like Tracer, potentially discord targets that your Wrecking Ball is going on, and breaking a Sigma shield. But just like with some of the other characters, Zenyatta has an incredibly high skill ceiling. Very difficult to get the maximum effectiveness. He requires an insane amount of mechanical skill to play him to his peak level, and there's a certain amount that unless you have, it's going to be hard for you to fight off characters like a Tracer or even get them to respect you. Now, if I had to give you some tips to mastering Zenyatta, I'll give you 2. The first one is to constantly think about your position. How close are you playing? Where are the flank routes to get to you? Remember, you are literally fucking dinner for some of these dive characters. Wrecking Ball wants you, Roadhog's gonna flank you, Tracer wants to eat you, but if you can stay alive, you staying alive could do so much. You're building ultimate, you're outputting more damage, you're allowing your team to get picks, so the harder it is for an enemy to kill you, the more value you'll get. So that is what you need to be thinking about make it hard for enemies to kill you and think about all the ways in which they will try. And then the next thing that I would definitely tell you about Zenyatta is that you're more lethal than you think. Zenyatta is basically a DPS character. I mean, he's kind of a DPS support hybrid. He's so goddamn lethal. Sometimes the best way to actually get a lot of value on Zenyatta is by utilizing that damage. You can actually just straight up kill people that are not expecting you. And while I'm not saying just go straight up DPS Zenyatta, I am saying that a big amount of your value comes from your offensive and aggressive plays that you can make. Now, as far as the other supports, there's a lot of them. Baptiste has a large pick rate. Ana is very good and actually sees into more play in the lower ranks. She really counters Roadhog very well, and she kind of does it all. She's not only just fun to play, I love her personally, but she can have a lot of impact. When there's less shields being played, you can get fat nades. Your sleep can shut down a wrecking ball. Your nades can shut down a hog. There's just a lot to love about Ana, and I think that she's playable in a lot of different compositions. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you see an Ana in every single game you play. Lucio still sees quite a bit of play under the right circumstances, specifically if you're playing a Reinhardt, maybe even a Zarya, or in some cases, maybe you're playing like double shield Ryan Sigma in a brawl composition. Lucio allows you that speed to kind of close the gap. And Brig, of course, is a character that ultimately, Brig is something that every single support player should have in their back pocket. It's a great character to whip out when you are kind of getting bullied, you don't have a team that is peeling for you, you kind of feel helpless. Brig can do a lot just by existing. You have an Ana player that's getting dove by a wrecking ball and a Zen. You play Brig and just exist near the Ana and protect the Ana, allow the Ana to do everything that she normally does and not die. You're getting so much value to your team because you are protecting the character that, if left unchecked, gets to do so much. And I know it's a weird concept. I feel like sometimes people play Brig and they're like, okay, I have to stun this, I have to go in here, I have to charge forward, I have to be like a pseudo tank, and they get too aggressive and they die. But Brig's one of those characters where living is what your job is and keeping your teammates alive is what your job is. So it's not trying to necessarily be overly aggressive, but it's trying to get that residual value from you existing. Now, I want to make something clear about this list. This is just the top characters that are played in Grandmaster. There are so many characters that you can play in a multitude of ranks right now. This is a really balanced time for Overwatch in a very strange way. There is so many options. I mean, every single support for the most part is viable. You could even play Mercy, pocket a DPS character, or play one of the fly characters like Pharah or Echo. That could be really great in the right hands. Every single support is viable in one way or another, and I would say that the only support that is probably lacking right now is Moira, but if we're talking about ranks that are silver and lower, Moira can actually just be that character that is completely independent and can be fine. I do think that she tends to be a crutch character, and it would probably be better for you to learn some of the other characters right now, but that is just my suggestion. You can pretty much play whatever you want. Now, the DPS role is completely open. You can play the majority of characters. Now, some characters, of course, have very map-specific situations, and others have gotten power crept. Characters like Genji might be pretty weak in high ranks, but for the majority of ranks, a good Genji can basically do whatever he wants. Characters like Symmetra have an astronomically low pick rate, but that doesn't mean she isn't very good against double shield, or she can't get utility out of her teleporter, and her ultimate is crazy powerful. I think that right now the DPS role is pretty open as well. But of course, the characters that we talked about in the beginning are going to be far and away the best right now. And the tanking role is also pretty open. I didn't mention a character like Zarya, but Zarya can be very powerful when paired with the Rhine and played in a traditional sense. There's a lot of different routes you can go right now in comp. I just wanted to kind of break down some of the ways in which the higher levels of play are playing, some things that you can learn from them and incorporate, and give you some tips and tricks about some of the best characters in the game right now. So yeah, oh, I forgot to mention Baptiste is super played right now. I don't even know why I didn't mention him earlier. Whatever, he's super played, 6.24%. Anyways, I really want to hear what character you're playing right now this season. What characters are you having success with? And are you excited about Overwatch 2? Let me know down below, and get the GameLeap website at a fat 50% off with our Overwatch 2 sale. Code Overwatch 2 down below gets you access to all the tips, tricks, guides over every single hero. And on top of that, we're going to be completely remaking the website for Overwatch 2. So if you want to get a leg up on your competition already, so you can just dominate, become a streamer, become a top level player, whatever you want to do yourself a favor and go check it out right now, down below.